My name is Brian Guidotti. I am the team lead for Team 4. Our team objective that we've gone through this morning is how might we establish and maintain an alignment between survey layout, 2D vector, and 3D BIM location references in ways that effectively translate across reference point medium and phase of project delivery so that design or CA documents can easily be filtered or sorted by their associated location tag. So it's very open-ended. And so we spent the last 30 minutes, or the first 30 minutes, just discussing where we wanted to start. We landed on an RFI, a wall moving. And so what we did is we mapped out current state of the RFI process and how the location tag and location information changes from the beginning to the quote-unquote end of that RFI process. So what we did is we started with the trade contractor, and they're sending that RFI via email, right? And they're sending in two pieces of information. They're sending in level, and there might be a picture, right? So there's a wall on level 2. Here's a picture of it. We need to move this wall. Goes to the GC. And the important thing is that this location is being enriched through this entire process. So in addition to level and a picture, now we have a location reference, right? We have a level, we have a room. We have a document reference. Maybe it's associated with an A201 document. At what point it's sent to the architect, right? It comes in through email, gets saved into their PM system. Their PM system issues it over to the architect and engineer because there's a wonderful connector between these two solutions. And again, we have another refinement of information, right? We're taking one document reference and we're splitting into multiple because the architect has to send it to the MEP engineer, different engineering types need different documents. So they're taking that location and now they're applying it from that one A201 to the different types of documents for the people that they're sending it to. But they're expanding that out more, right? Not only do they have level and room that they got from the GC, but now we're talking about grid, we're talking about area, we're talking about directional orientation, north, south, east, west. And of course, we still have that wonderful picture that's sent back to the engineers. They take a look at it, they investigate it, send it back over to the architect, back to the contractor. But now we have this wonderful CM team that needs to be involved, right? And so how does that location reference is passed over to the CM team? And then at the end, all of this information and all of this additional information is sent back over to the initial trade contractor, and they have to kind of translate that and say, okay, I have a lot of information, but what do I actually need in order to move that wall if it's approved? And so we're really excited to go into the future state and see how not only integrations between products, but maybe some way to automatically translate some of this information from the beginning to the end.
Well done.
Yeah.
Team in the back here, yeah, questions, clarifications, corrections?
That last distribution, right, going back to the original trade, who wrote it. But the one down below is, the RFI gets blasted to everybody on the project. Now, everyone else involved in the project has to decipher that location and what impact it has to them and their potential for the work there. So that's where we talked about that, trying to translate location as it goes through. It comes back. They have to figure out, does that impact me? What kind of effect does it have, on walls, ceilings, MEP systems, everything else that's associated with that. That's the current state.
Well, and that's a great reason why you picked the in-wall RFI, because it affects multiple different systems and trades
correct.
and people, so it's likely to have all those different inputs.
I have to spend time to investigate that to see if it's affecting me or not.
Rachel?
I was going to say, from the design perspective, knowing location of the issue that has occurred in the field is one thing, but then inferring where it's going to impact the design overall for a larger project where you have to go, okay, this is a condition here, and where else is it located in the project? So location, again, layering more information into that is to then capture all the issues that you have to address based on that one RFI.
It'd be fun to go through this in the afternoon and look at realistically which one of these are. It'd be great if we thought we were doing them versus like what we're actually doing, and then do root causes on why we're not doing what because I agree this is what we should do, and some ideal projects do it, but there's a lot of root cause, which is what this afternoon's all about, is to why do some of these things maybe not happen the way they should.
Yes.
One of the lackings that we have right now, if you're just using a room number
or you've made a cloud on a drawing, or you've indicated that something is happening on the north side of the building, that's not information you can analyze spatially. You can't determine that there seems to be an issue on every floor in the northwest corner related to a particular system that keeps penetrating in the wrong area. But if you can actually codify this location into something that's analyzable, then you have the potential to remove those hundreds of RFIs that come up because of the same condition that keeps occurring. So it's digitizing this location, not just having it be parameters that are in a checkbox list somewhere.
That's our word of the day, location codification. I like that. That's got a good ring to it.
Didn't catch it?
Exactly.
Could lead to another RFI.
Yep.
For the exact same thing.
And do
The
you
wall
create
moved.
a .1 or do you create a new one?
Yeah,
Yeah,
no,
that's if you guys want to have that discussion,
But
you
I'm
can
just
have
saying
that.
that's the other problem with it as well is I didn't look at it and when the RFI came out, I look at it after the wall's in place, it's one side, it's some systems going in place, and now I'm like, oh crap, we didn't know this RFI changed it. Now we got to write another RFI for another change for that. And so that's why there's one RFI can lead to 10 RFIs.
Yep.
Absolutely.
How are you guys considering the data and how it needs to move to AHJ and inspections? Are you, because that's a whole nother layer of once this happens, how are you updating the people actually approving the work from the state or local authorities?
Great point.
Or not approving the work.
Or
And
not
what does that
approving.
trigger?
Yeah, it
Because
can do
the
all
whole,
this
the whole
work
thing
and
is
then-
like an
yeah.
issue. So an issue can be an RFI, it can be a BIM coordination, it could be a punch list or an inspection failure.
Right.
Yeah, all of them are issues.
Yep.
So the location codification. Thank you, Mark. I'm going to reiterate that. But that opens up the possibility, potential for you to actually kind of red zone areas and say if there's anything happening in this area, we should pay special attention to it, and then you can start to flag things that might be considerations that AHJ would be concerned about, certain encroachments or conditions of spatial requirements, things like that. But codification would allow you to do that analysis that is now left to us to manually investigate, which is why that pain or job security or I don't know. But
It's the intersection of an RFI location with like a hotspot boundary. Like anytime the RFI enters that hotspot boundary, it does. Yeah, you guys are ahead of the game. That's awesome. Other questions? This was really good. Cool. Well, yeah, there's plenty more to dig into. Brian, great job. Great job, team.
This is very involved with things like WBS, which is another topic that we're going over this week. Hopefully we can get a little bit of cross-team communication so that we can solve or at least discuss the problem as a whole and what we can do in the meantime in order to take care of some of these issues.
Let's keep going. Wait a minute, you're not Brian. What are you doing here?
My name is DJ Phipps. I work for Procore Technologies. We talked about how to better leverage locations and talk about breaking down the silos when it comes to locations. The typical mindset is locations are linear in nature, and your definition of a location is different than how I define a specific location. One RFI on A201 could lead to 5 other RFIs because that RFI didn't address the impact to electrical, to mechanical, to the plumbing systems, all those other things. We really didn't quite modify it that much, but how might we establish and maintain alignment between survey layout, 2D vector, and 3D BIM location references in ways that effectively translate across reference points, medium, and phase of project delivery so that design or construction administration documents can easily be filtered or sorted by their associated location tab, allowing for a rapid access to critical information for anyone's needs or objectives based on their perspective. Right, so the bigger part of this, we talked about locations in general and context, and the problem when it comes to locations is they're linear in nature, right? They always think of this, and everybody has their own definition of a location on a project, right? The design team figures it out, right? They have their locations. The GC does their locations. The trades have locations, but then there's also a work breakdown structure, right? There's location base, all of that there. So we made some assumptions here, some big ones, but design is complete and construction is underway, right? And we're on level 2. And so what we're trying to solve for is trying to give and decipher and be able to translate all the different variations of how people digest the word location. So Design team provides models, CADs, contract documents, right? Drawings, all that other stuff. This already has the beginnings of a lot of location information inside of it. And we know what, where it is, right? The northing and eastings, like what property it is. We know the boundaries of the building. We know where it's at. We know the elevations, whether it's civil elevations or building elevations, all that other stuff. We take it into this magic thing called our location codifier. And it does all this wizardry that we will not talk about. But what it does is it's basically like the Rosetta Stone. What we're going to do is build the relationships between locations, right? Because the location's not static. It's a many-to-many, right? And so this gets enriched as you go through. So when I talk about level 2, there is a lot of other location information associated with level 2, okay? But what we're solving for in this instance, so bear with me because I'm guilty of it as well. We start talking about all the other tangents. It's an RFI that the metal framing contractor is saying this wall, we need to move this wall. Before all that happens, we're building this location matrix, right? Right now, locations are siloed in nature. We're trying to bring them together so that we can enrich it. And then this magic thing, we will basically take PDFs, even though Matt from Inertia back there hates PDFs, and we're basically applying location information to the drawings, right? We're enriching the PDF because the PDF doesn't have that inherently inside of it. So that when it flows into the GC system, those drawings are enriched. So when I'm on the job, right, I'm creating an RFI. More often than not, the RFI is created from the drawings. I'm dropping a pin, right? We're assuming like you're just gonna drop a pin. When I drop that pin on this drawing that's been enriched, that pin now has location, right? And then from there, we're able to, this is where it starts helping things out. Locations are also drawings, right? Where is this happening on the drawings? And what typically happens sometimes in the RFI process is I write an RFI for A201, and the design team maybe only sends us back A201. But we don't know all the other sheets that could be potentially impacted. We don't know the scopes. We don't know what the other potential impacts are going to be. So it's basically trying to enrich this information so it's here. We're not going to put it all in the RFI, but what we're going to do is put it in some sort of like related information. Like, hey, here's, right, you dropped a pin here, but when it's enriched here and it goes to the GC to actually do the RFI, we're actually giving the architect a list of drawings where this pin could potentially have an impact. So when the architect gets it through their connectors, goes into, we're assuming Newforma, the architect already knows like what sheets they need to review, potentially, right? They're also going to do their own review. That helps streamline the turnaround time to actually get an RFI response. And so when that comes back through, it's already enriched. We have all that information in there as that. So when it gets distributed, right? Right now we've all been on projects. GC gets an RFI, everybody gets the RFI. But you get 30 emails a day of all these RFIs, and then you're supposed to go through and look at that RFI and see if it impacts you. But if you knew where it was location-wise, plus if you knew what drawings it was associated with, and there were E-sheets as part of this, then you as the electrical contractor would look at that. If you just saw an A-sheet, you'd be like, meh, maybe, right? When that doesn't happen, you get this first RFI without location information could turn into 10 RFIs for the same thing. Because they're not, it's not known, right? You're not seeing what the impact is. And so what we're trying to do is also, there's so much information overload on projects, they get so much information. What we're trying to do is then filter this list, right? When the RFI goes out to everybody, we're kind of telling you, you may want to look at this, right? Because it's affecting these sheets. Everyone's still getting the data, but now we're actually helping like notify you like, hey, these are your sheets, these are part of your scope. You might want to look at these, okay? But when you drop the pin, right, so as all this information, what we're talking about here is like when the pin drops, it's like we're assuming like, hey, here's the pin, it's in the Hotel Kempton, we're in Area A, Level 2, we're near grid lines 3 and C, we're in the Copper Ballroom, it's on sheet A201, and because it's on A201, it's got an X, Y, and Z. And then the database, right, the information, building those relationships between locations, I can now extract northing and eastings, I can extract elevation. I can extract WBS, pore sequence, however that you want to tackle or trying to understand this project. This is what's helping solve it.
I just want to make a statement real quick. I think this team went from the least defined to definitely like the most defined solution. So
Well, we
kudos.
had to narrow because we were always like, well, what about this? And it's just like, well, no, we're talking about an RFI, right? But at the end of the day, what's nice, even if you want to know what happened with that wall, right? And so the problem is this is it's not the ideal state of the solution. It's the beginning of it. But going forward, what you'd want to do is actually pick a wall and associate that issue, inspection items, all that with the wall itself, not on a location on the PDFs. Smarter PDFs. So we call this PDFs 2.0.
Yeah, and that's what I really love about it. It is a persona-based view of this world. It's that person's view of how this world looks, not kind of this macro level view of location tags, which is how we'd like to think about it, but we'll never be in that state, right?
But all the data's there. If you want to see all of this other data, you can, because it's there.
Yeah, and at the same time, too, like understanding that PDFs right now is kind of where we need to meet people to get that adoption. So sort of enhancing that as a way to say it's going to be hard to talk people off of that ledge of using PDFs and just wanting to look at the drawing and point that out. So this is a way for us to, add some more to that so that it makes sense for the folks downstream.
Awesome. Thank you, DJ.
Thank you.